My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you, you don't need a contract, you need a team of pros. Alex with Bay Cities Construction here. Hey, we are back. We have an amazing show. We're going to be talking about Ridgecrest. We drove out there and we recorded a bunch of different houses, a bunch of different buildings, and I want to share with you what we've learned so far. We're also going to be talking about house bolting, and at the end we're going to do a little bit of we're going to cover a little bit about Softstorey retrofitting. So please stay tuned. We got an amazing show today. Alex with Bay Cities Construction. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Wait. Go PMP. Hey folks, Alex Rodriguez here. Hey, we've got an amazing show today. It's been a while. We took some time to get some footage together and some pictures of Ridgecrest. For those of you that don't know, obviously here in Southern California, we had our first earthquake in 20 years, and it happened in the desert. So we went out there to check it out, to see what we can learn so that we can provide amazing projects for our customers. And the best thing for us was to go out there and get into the field and learn how the ground broke, how the buildings behaved, and what do we need to do. So let's get into it. So what can we learn from Ridgecrest? So just a little quick recap from the last episode, Remembering Northridge. We put a little thing together. For those of you that were too young to remember Northridge, or those of you that have forgotten about it, it's kind of a little recap. So I hope you enjoy that episode. It also talks about some of the natural disasters in LA. And please follow the link there, and we'll get you set up with that previous episode. That's episode 27, by the way. All right, so tonight's episode, Ridgecrest. So we got in our car. Brian and I got in the car. We took the drone, took all of this different stuff over there, all this different gear, camera gear and audio and all that stuff, and we toured a bunch of the neighborhoods down there. So this is our governor touring some of the damage, I think, in Trona. Actually, could have been Ridgecrest. Anyhow, so we're going to talk about how we're going to protect houses, what we learned, and how we can protect some houses. We're also going to talk about typical seismic forces on structures and the earthquake phenomena, like what happens during an earthquake and what we can expect, what kind of damage we can expect to see. So, Ridgecrest, the excursion begins. So let's just do a little quick recap. Look, I'm not Dr. Lucy Jones. I'm just going to give you a quick little recap. On the 4th of July, we had the first earthquake that ended up being a 4-shock. And then on the 5th of July, we ended up having a 7.1. So in case you didn't know, that's the biggest earthquake that California's had in 20 years. And believe me, it's the longest. It was a lot longer than Northridge. It lasted well over a minute. Northridge is about 12 or 15 seconds, something like that. So it's definitely a lot stronger. Since the earthquakes, the major earthquakes, or the 4-shock and the actual earthquake, there's been thousands of aftershocks, and I'm sure you guys have seen that stuff in the news. Now, what I did, I just recently went to the SEOC convention, and a lot of the engineers covered, a few engineers covered a lot of damage, and they explained it. So I'm gonna share with you some of the knowledge that they passed on. And by the way, the SEOC, the Structural Engineers Association of Southern California, awesome people, very, very talented engineers, very dedicated engineers. So we're going to talk about some of the gas line rupture, power service. Power wasn't restored, by the way, until September 7th. That's 2 days of no power. July 7th. And the water was disrupted until July 11th. So remember, it was the desert. Not a good place to be without water. So this is a little bit an overview shot of that road. We actually we traveled on that road. It had been fixed by the time that we got there, but it was displaced by 8 feet. It's pretty significant. The naval base, China Lake, supposedly suffered a little bit over $2 billion worth of damage. That was probably catastrophic, but no one's been able to go down there. They haven't allowed like the news cameras and stuff to see. So, people are speculating. I think the first numbers that came out were like 6 billion or something like that. So it's 5 billion, 5.5, a bunch of different numbers came out. So I think the agreed upon current number is about 2.2 billion. It's a lot, believe me. To have 2.2 billion dollars of damage in the middle of nowhere, there's a lot of damage. So okay, so let's talk about what we learned. So this is one of the shots that Brian and I took, of a trailer park in Ridgecrest, and it's basically, I guess a good way to describe it is that it slipped off the foundation, or it slipped off the piers. So you can see here, this is a picture that I took. The displacement's about 20 inches. So where my hand is in this picture is basically the edge of the concrete. And when the trailer slipped off the piers, it basically fell to my left in this picture, or actually, if we're looking at it, to the left. Anyway, it pretty interesting to see that. Pretty much 80%, well, maybe not 80%, maybe it was like 75% of the trailers in that park slipped off the piers. This one here, obviously you can see that it's got fire damage, it's a total loss. But I was talking to some of the neighbors, and they explained to me that the owners were an elderly couple, and during the earthquake they got so freaked out they ran out of the house, and something was left on, and it caught fire. So I don't know. I mean, that's the story I was told in the field. I wasn't there. So, but I think that it's important to note that if there would have been a gas shutoff valve on this building, and on some of the other ones that were burnt, for that matter, that the shutoff valve would have tripped, and immediately the flame would have terminated. So that, at least hypothetically, that could have been prevented. Now, I want to just kind of recap. This is a picture of the trailer park that was over in after the Northridge. It was in the North Valley. And again, this was all caused by fires. If people were to install this little easy gas shutoff valve on the gas meter itself, a lot of these fires could be prevented, So let's talk about how to protect your house, how to protect a home. For those of you who don't know, we do seismic retrofitting. We do earthquake bolt down for single families, and we also do Softstorey retrofitting for big apartment buildings. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to be talking about houses now, right? The idea is that we went to Ridgecrest, we saw the damage, and then now we take what we learned in the field and start applying it to, obviously, to bolt downs. So let's talk about like what you're seeing here. I have some hardware that I'm going to share with you, but basically what you're looking at here is a Simpson URFP plate, and it's basically, let me come back to me on the shot. It's basically a steel plate, and this shape allows it to be screwed onto or attached to the mud sill. So in my picture here, if we go up picture in picture, this top section here is the mud sill above the stem wall. All right, so you use basically these bolts. These are SDS screws. Again, these come in the kit with the plate. So these bad boys go through here, and they screw onto the mud sill. All right, and then in these holes here, we install Simpson Titans, or you can epoxy it. In our picture, this is actually a job that we did. It's not a completed assembly, but it's a nice close-up shot with good lighting, because it's hard to do that under the house. And we installed, in this case, we pre-drilled the hole into the stem wall, and we put in a Simpson Titan bolt. It's basically a bolt. It's an amazing piece of technology. It's approved to just drive it in to masonry, and you don't need any epoxy or anything like that. So for those of you that realize that there's a nice fresh piece of wood on our retrofits, on our bolt downs, we install 4x blocking. That's 4 inches thick by, I think in this case it's like a 16-inch piece, and it's horizontal, and it's basically designed to help transfer the load over. I'll show you some of the pictures of this. But what we're trying to do here is, if you notice, here's the 4-ply. This is we're still, this isn't finished, but in a scenario where the floor joists are running parallel to the stem wall, we'll put the blocking in place. And what we want to do is increase the footprint, right? We want to increase the footprint of the connections. So we want to add more wood to the existing building, and then we want to tie it into the new steel members, right? So this would be the new steel members. In other cases, we tie the mud sill to the blocking. So this goes on the mud sill. This would be kind of like this, installed kind of like this, where this is holding the mud sill to the stem wall, and then this is holding the mud sill to the blocking, which is tying up the floor system, the floor joists. So together, you're going to get some pretty nice functioning drag. So let me show you the next diagram, because I think it'll put in perspective what we're talking about here. So this house is a little bit different. There's a cripple wall here, so you have to put plywood in place. But the idea is that you bolt down the little green mud sill, or actually, let me get a little closer here. You bolt down the green mud sill to the stem wall. You put your RFP plates to keep that stuff. So when you cannot install, these bolts like this, and most of them, there's no space. See, there really isn't any space for us to put new bolts. Like Isaac, this is Isaac, one of my guys here. He looks like a train robber. It's pretty dirty in there. But you wouldn't be able to put a new bolt in, so we put these plates in its place instead. And those will help transfer the loads. So this is another plate. Simpson makes this plate. It's a flat plate. If there's a scenario where the mud sill is flush with the concrete, you can use these. So either one, you can use these interchangeably, this one or a flat plate. Now, I want to bring your attention to these little clips up on top. These are called anchors. So the Simpson branded ones are A35s. These are super, super common, and they work really good. I think they have a transfer force of about 235, could be 335 foot-pounds. So when you basically nail these, and it'll keep this kind of damage from occurring. I'm going to show you what we found over in Ridgecrest. Hey, so before we do that, let me show you this shake test. I really think you're going to find it interesting. And this is a shake test the Japanese did, and it really shows how a structure behaves when it's undergoing an earthquake. Am I hitting that right there? Or am I hitting the picture? Guys, let's do this. You want to go to a break? We're going to queue up this picture for the Japanese test. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Do you know that a big earthquake can produce a wave that's 2 feet tall? Hi folks, I'm Alex Rodriguez, and I want to protect your house for $199 a month. I'm the owner of Bay Cities Construction, and after visiting Ridgecrest, it's clear to me that you can prevent a tremendous amount of expensive damage by having a seismic retrofit done to your raised foundation. Have you ever wondered if your house needs to be bolted down? And have you ever wondered what could happen to your house if it's not braced and bolted down? Let's check this out. Let's get down and dirty. So this is how we do a bolt down. We bolt down the mud sill to the stem, then we connect the floor joist to the mud sill, and then ideally you connect the subfloor to the floor joist. That's the system to keep this connection intact while the floor is violently shaken. Our low-cost financing makes this project affordable. The process is easy. It only takes 1 day. We live in earthquake country. Dr. Lucy Jones reminds us that earthquakes are random. We can't predict earthquakes, but we can prepare. Remember, it only takes $199 a month to protect your most valued investment. Get peace of mind with a Bay Cities Construction seismic retrofit. Protect your largest investment. Go to baycitiesconstruction.com and sign up today. My question to you is, can you over-engineer a house for an earthquake? Look at that. You tell me. The big question is, did we do enough? I'm Alex Rodriguez reminding you, you don't need a contractor. You need a team of pros. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Hey, so we've got the Japanese shake test video teed up. I want you guys to check it out, and please, on the comments below, tell me what you guys think, because when I first saw this video, I thought it was crazy. So again, this is footage it's on YouTube, and it's basically kind of like, so what you're seeing here is the start of the earthquake. One of them is retrofitted with all of the new fasteners and all that. By the way, what you're seeing here, notice how the second and third floor, they want to stay in place, and what the real movement is between the ground level and the second floor. So what you saw there is basically the time that it actually tips over and breaks. There's a drift calculation that the engineers do to determine, you know, how much stiffness they want the building to have. And typically when it passes 4%, maybe 4.5%, 5%, you actually have a complete failure, which is basically when it's all over. Your house becomes a little bit of rubble. So is this the last one, or is it over? That's it? Okay, cool. All right, so I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I'm really curious to see what your impression is, if you've seen that before. By the way, we have that video posted on our website at baycitiesconstruction.com and Softstorey Retrofit Pros also. I've watched the video hundreds of times, and it still kind of freaks me out. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. That gives you kind of a perspective, an understanding of how the building is going to behave. This is a picture of a beautiful little device. This is the little gas shutoff valve that I was telling you about, and you can get these things installed for under $400, like $350, $320. If you're handy, you can probably put these in yourself. Not a whole lot of rocket science behind this. It's basically pipe thread and a little bit of pipe sealant. It's called pipe dough. The other thing you should consider when you're protecting your house is make sure your your water heater is strapped in. And if you don't know how to do that, just get a handyman or a professional to do it for you. There's companies out there that are doing this stuff now. It's really important that you do that, because when the water heater falls over, typically what ends up happening is they break. The water heater will snap that gas line, and then gas will start pouring into the building, and all you need is a spark, and it's a bad day. So these are two items, right, that if were to be present in a building like this one that we took a picture of in Ridgecrest, that fire could have definitely been prevented for under $400. You know, so for those of you that think, oh man, the valve's $400, I mean, this was a total loss, and the people had to move out. They had no place to live. So things to consider. You know, don't want to be. So let's talk about the types, the typical seismic forces, and what the building, what kind of damage the building can actually incur. So what you're looking at here is, this is a single family house. This was, I think, in Trona, in the little town in Trona. I kind of lost my mouse. Where's that guy? So what you're looking at here on the bottom, where you can see the crack is parallel to the ground, and that's basically where the wall framing meets the mud sill, right? So it's the section that this thing is connected to. The wall studs are sitting on that, right? So what ends up happening is that the ground is moving, right? Because the earthquake is moving the ground, but the building isn't moving. So if there's no good connection between the building, the walls, and the foundation, you're going to get that break there. In fact, at first, it seemed like the house slips off the foundation, and I've got some diagrams kind of coming up. In fact, I'll get into that in a minute, but let me just show you what we found over in Ridgecrest. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So here what you're looking at is this bottom section here where that little big chunk of looks like stucco flew out. So that actually looks worse than it is. That section of stucco broke, but the stem wall that's in there, that's kind of deeper in there. I don't know if you guys could see my mouse, but that's the actual stem wall. That's just stucco that peeled off. On this side here, you could see that the floor system pushed. Basically, when the shaking stopped, the house stayed in its place, and when the shaking stopped, can you roll over to me? When the house is in place, well, actually, how do I get a little diagram here? Excuse me, sorry, real quick. It's kind of cool to show it this way. This is the foundation. So can you see that in the shot? This is the foundation. Let's say this is the floor system. Okay, this wood section here. So as the ground is moving and this connection breaks, instead of moving together, right? What happened is that connection broke and the ground started doing this. The house wants to stay still because it's got gravity on it, right? The ground is moving because it's experiencing the seismic waves. So what ended up happening is this is what happened here. When the ground stopped moving, boom, the house is no longer flush like it used to be. After this movement stopped, it stopped like that. So you would think that the house slipped off the foundation, but really the foundation slipped under the house. And it's kind of a weird kind of concept to get your head around, but that's actually what happened. So the floor system, what you're seeing punching through that stucco wall is the floor system pushing through. You know, because the floor system stayed in place, and when the foundation stopped moving, it ended up like that. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see it in the shot? Oh, my light's off. There we go. So when the ground stopped moving, the house just stayed there, and that's what you're looking at in the shot. Now, how can you prevent that? These little tiny clips, in conjunction with the blocking, and these bad boys can prevent that. You basically are going to need something like 27 of these. You're going to need one on every floor joist, and you're going to need one of these probably every 5 or 6 feet. This combination with this keeps all of that stuff from occurring. And it's crazy that such small little clips and stuff can prevent the tremendous amount of damage. So this next picture that I have here, whoa, I went back. This next picture shows you what the building is going to experience. Okay, so see in the first one, you see sliding. House slides off the foundation. You could say the foundation slides away from the house. House slides off the foundation, sure. But you're going to get this motion. Then the racking is when this little cripple wall starts to go beyond its design, and it starts to crush under the weight of the house. And then eventually, if this stays in place, but you don't hold the building down well to the cripple wall, it'll actually overturn, like in the video that you saw with the Japanese test. So, you guys, any questions on that? I'd be curious to answer any question for those of you watching live. And by the way, if you're watching this later after we broadcast it live, please comment below, and we'll make sure that we get back to you if you have any questions or comments. All right, so let's talk about lateral spread, liquefaction, and other crazy things that happen. Okay, so this is a really cool shot. We were actually there on this street, and what you're looking at is obviously some cracks on the asphalt. So you'll get these cracks from lateral spread, and it's part of liquefaction. And actually, what's actually happening is, think of like the street as a sheet of earth sliding into the lake bed as because of the seismic waves, right, that are affecting the ground. I'm not a seismologist, right, but I do understand the very basic mechanics of what's happening here. So the earthquake waves destabilize the ground, and then it actually just slides into its lowest point. And in this case, the dry lake bed that's behind the beautiful little Mustang there is the lowest point. So in some places, sorry, got ahead of myself though. In some places, you'll see, this crazy offset occur, and it's lateral spread, and in other cases, it's that I don't know what the geologists call it, but it's basically uplift, where the ground breaks and either one part sinks or the other part pushes up. So that's kind of an interesting phenomenon. And if you notice that all of this little crazy little spider cracking all over the sand on the left side of the road, the desert gets this little crust on it that's kind of hard, and then when the seismic wave pass through the dirt, it shatters it like broken glass. It's kind of a trip. The stucco I noticed that the stucco had that same cracking and that same almost like a spider web pattern. It was kind of a trip to see that. So if you're wondering if you're in a liquefaction section, check out this map. The USGS has a ton of information. I mean, it's amazing how much stuff is out there that we're not aware of. So we put this map up there. I think that's definitely a USGS map, right? And it covers the green area covers the liquefaction zones. Now I live in Redondo Beach, so you notice that there's a little tiny strip all along the coast it looks like almost from the airport, just by the airport, and there's a long little strip there, and then Redondo Beach has got some liquefaction. There's some liquefaction peppered in to Rancho PV, and then Long Beach and all this good stuff here. So hey, liquefaction for buildings, it's not a good thing. It's all sorts of weird stuff. You actually look up liquefaction on YouTube, and you'll see all these videos of the ground moving. It's a trip to see solid dirt no longer be solid. It actually behaves like liquid. So as part of liquefaction, you're going to get this lateral spread, and then all of a sudden you have these big heavy pieces of masonry that are broken. That's actually, I think, my hand. I was able to get for most of my hand in that crack. It was so wide. So it'll cause damage to roads, damage to buildings. It's a pretty gnarly situation. So this is the now famous Esperanza restaurant, and we took this picture actually. Now what we didn't so let me kind of walk you through what we saw when we were there, but we didn't realize what we were looking at. So we didn't notice this big crack going all the way to the roof line. And it basically, but we didn't understand why it cracked like that. I thought at first it was kind of a different movement, but it was flush. It just looks basically like it's separated, right? Like the blocks separated. And if you notice, the top section of the framing, the tiles separated there too. So what ended up happening is this part of the building, the part of the building that's on the left where most of that logo is, actually, when it experienced that lateral spread, it broke and it slipped a little bit towards the lake bed, along with all the dirt and stuff that was underneath it. And that's why you got that break up on the joints of the framing. See, the framing is a completely different element altogether. That's cinder block wall, that's all masonry, and the roof is made out of wood, right? So when it's basically tearing itself apart, right? As that sheet of dirt moves from under the building, it's tearing itself apart. That was crazy. We actually have some really cool drone footage. If you guys want to see it, I'd love to see your comments, and we'll send you a link to it. We got really cool drone footage of this building. All right, so in these pictures, we're back over the desert, and you can see you've got that lateral spreading too, where basically it's just no deflection. It just spreads. The ground spreads away from each other, from itself. It's my truck in the background. What we're looking at here, typically you see this like when there's a little river runoff or something, but that's basically either uplift or the bottom kind of sank out a little bit. It's definitely caused by the earthquake. All right, so we got another little tip to help protect your investment, protect your houses. For those of you that may live in one of these buildings, this is a soft-story building. It's basically a building that's sitting on a raised, the ground floor, you have ground floor parking, and then your living quarters are above that. And there's piers and stuff, and we have videos that talk about that a little bit. But I wanted you to know, in case you haven't been, you're not aware of it, these buildings are required in the city of LA and Santa Monica to be retrofitted, and it's basically to prevent them from collapsing. So if you live in one of those buildings, make sure you watch our other videos on Softstorey retrofitting.
West Hollywood also.
West Hollywood, Pasadena just passed the ordinance,
Beverly
and Beverly Hills. So for those buildings, the retrofit looks something like this. This happens to be a Simpson special moment frame, and you basically attach that to the building, and it provides lateral force resistance to keep those walls from buckling like you saw in the Japanese video. Okay, this video here, sorry, I just I hit that. So I was at the CIOSC, the Structural Engineers Association annual meeting in beautiful Squaw last week, and I was part of a seminar here. This was some of the figures that were taken from a GER report. And what you're looking at is the current code. I think those are the solid lines and the dashed lines. The current code force resistance requirement. And then you're looking at the earthquake, actual felt force. So if you were further away, so whenever you look at these maps, by the way, they create a heat map. The red is the highest intensity level, right? So what we're saying here, what I'm interpreting these graphs for you is, in this graph, this is the seismic force in relation to the current code, right? So you could see that it's slightly, the earthquake felt slightly exceeds the code, okay? Now, when you're in the red zone of the break, you could clearly see that the seismic force experienced is way above the minimum code requirements. So what we're saying, what we're interpreting from this data is that the minimum code is not enough. Remember, the code is life safety. That means that the goal is for the building to not fall and kill you, all right? It does not mean that the building will make it, that the building will be resilient. So that is captured, that kind of data is captured in these two graphs. And I think it's important for you to know, I didn't make these graphs. This was presented by one of the very, very smart engineers at one of the lectures that I went to. So it's very clear that if you're close in the red zone, the current code isn't enough. So, do you have any questions? What do you guys think about our presentation tonight? Did you guys get any value out of it? I'm curious to see if we have any posted or emailed questions. Brian, do we have anything to go over with our folks?
Yeah, Mike, one of our viewers, wants to know why these seismic retrofit ordinances are being passed in all these LA cities.
Well, mostly because of this information here. Those buildings won't make it. If you get hit with an earthquake that produces this kind of data, they're not going to make it. The Softstorey buildings won't make it. Now, it isn't mandatory for you to bolt down your house, but you saw what would happen if your house isn't properly bolted down. And we're talking, by the way, we're talking to bolt down your house as cheap as $7,500. You want to go kind of a heavy duty setup where you add a lot of wood and a lot more connectors. You could be 11, 12K, something like that. But you can definitely get it done for mid $6,000, $7,000, something like that. So the thing with the ordinance is they want to provide a life safety standard, right? They don't want people to die, and those buildings are not, as they are built, when they were built, they're not made strong enough to withstand an earthquake like that. By the way, we've got several other faults that are much closer to the San Andreas or Ridgecrest that can produce a 7.1. The Inglewood fault can definitely produce a 7.1 plus earthquake, and there's any numbers. The Hollywood fault can also produce that kind of an earthquake, and those are right here. Those are not in the middle of the desert. Okay, those two faults, that's an L-shaped fault in Ridgecrest, and that was in the middle of nowhere. It produced $2.2 billion worth of damages. What do you think it would do if we had an earthquake that strong downtown LA, East LA, Redondo Beach? We would have well over $100 billion worth of damage. It would be a lot worse. What are the questions we got?
One of our viewers, Carlos, would like to know, how long does the average home retrofit take?
Oh, it's days. One day, could be 3 days if you go hardcore. I mean, the most we've spent adding a lot of wood to a house was 4 or 5 days, something like that. That's a good question, though. And by the way, you're not even, you don't have to move out. You don't have to shut the utilities off. None of that stuff. And you should really consider getting an earthquake shutoff valve. We don't install that. If you reach out to us, we can definitely set you up with a very good company that'll install one of those for you really right away. They're very reputable, and some of the new valves are really impressive. So reach out to us for that earthquake shutoff valve. It's important.
Another viewer, Emily, would like to know: do you need permits or plans for retrofitting your home?
Yes, so it is voluntary, but most of the cities will let you use, and we'll sketch that stuff up for you. Will let us use all of the notations and stuff from the LADBS pre-approved plans. It's super easy. I can handle all that stuff for you. You don't have to do it, but it's really easy to get your building permit squared away in the event you want one. We got any other questions? Hey guys, thank you very much for your questions. For those of you guys watching, thank you so much for participating. If you're watching us after the fact, please post in the comments below. We definitely love answering questions. We're really passionate about this. If you want to learn more about house bolting or software retrofitting, please go to our websites. You can go to softwareretrofitpros.com /blog, or you can go to baycitiesconstruction.com. We post articles there probably every week, every other week, and depending on what topics come up, and we're always dealing with new learning opportunities, and we want to spread the good word so that you folks are informed consumers. So for those of you that want to know a little bit about us, we've been in business for over 15 years doing residential construction, wood frame construction, multifamily or single family. And in the event that you need our services, we provide you with complete design, architectural and engineering services, city representation, and we'll manage your project. So, hey, don't miss our episode. Please subscribe, like us on Facebook, and if you're watching us on YouTube, please smash that button so that you get notifications when we have a new episode. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to reach out to us at our office, this is our contact info. Thank you so much for being with us today. We love the fact that you participate and you watch our show. We spend a lot of time and energy creating these videos for you, and they're for you. So if you have any suggestions on how we can make these videos better or more informative, please, we'd love to hear from you. My name's Alex with Bay Cities Construction, reminding you don't need a contractor. You need a team of pros. My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you don't need a contractor. You need a team of pros.